Hey, this is Web Suspect, and I was asked to do a video on my final thoughts on Apple Campus 2. And I have to go down here and start a slideshow again. This is an article from Wired, and almost for about 8 months, we haven't heard any word on Apple Mothership. They stopped using the paraphrase, I guess you'd call it 8 months ago, Apple Mothership, and they started calling it Apple Spaceship Campus. There's a few pictures in this article by The Wired. I think it's written by Levine, with a few pictures of the campus that I haven't seen and a few details added on about the doors and some pods and some more details about how the windows don't open, but the building's designed to bring in fresh air. So I think it's important to understand that in a building like this, people are going to want fresh air at work. But opening the windows creates a security issue where people could throw a USB drive or something out of the windows. So the windows don't open, and then the employees are like, I need fresh air, and they want to go outside. It's kind of like an everlasting loop. So these are some door handles that were designed for Apple Campus 2. I had some notes. I'm going to attach a video link at the bottom description on a former Apple employee named Don Norman on Norman Doors. And he sort of talks about some of the engineering issues with doors. We will have to see when the building's finished if these handles work good with the doors. Sometimes people will put a pull handle on a push side of the door, and that will force people to pull on a door that you should push. And Don Norman says, well, you could just put like a sill plate on a door, because since there's nothing to grab, then you have to push the door. And he sort of goes into this elegant design theory of it's sort of reminiscent of Frank Lloyd Wright's form follows function. But more than that, he says that the way you design something sort of invites you to discover how to use it, and before you know it, you've forgotten sort of how you discovered how you used it. You just use it, which is a basic design element in Apple's products. I don't really feel like I'm totally in love with these door handles. One of the thoughts I had is if it's a sliding door, maybe the handle should be round instead of a bar. So they're going to be tending to use these handles all over the building, but the door function may not be clearly indicated by the design of the handle. They're going to have special lighting that you can adjust. Sometimes people with Asperger's are sensitive to lighting. Too much light, usually. And they took the picture of the escape pods down, and this is why. They're going to have these pods that Steve Jobs suggested, where if you just need to kind of get away from your work environment, you can kind of go hide in a pod, or have a meeting if you need to have a private meeting. The meeting room is not available. You'll be able to use a pod for a meeting room. The problem was when I looked at the pictures from the pods, they had noticed there was a crack in the ceiling, and the building's supposed to be flawless, and I guess whoever took the pictures missed the crack in the ceiling. So they forced them to remove the pictures of the cracked ceiling over the pod, and they're probably identifying it now and finding out where the crack is and when it needs to be fixed. But this is kind of like what the pods look like on the inside. It's important to understand when you're building a project like this or a home that you're going to have flaws like a crack in the ceiling or a mislaid tile. The issue is this: if it's a crack, does the crack pose a danger to the work environment, or is it just cosmetic? Then when the crack is sealed or fixed, it's got to be properly textured so it fits in. The same with a tile. A tile can be cut out, replaced if it's crooked, and then regrouted, as long as the grout matches and the tile is level. So those are some of my thoughts on Apple Campus 2. I'll scroll through some of the pictures and see if I can think of anything else. Some of the other notable issues is a patented pizza box. It takes up the same room as a pizza box, but will keep the pizza crisp as it's sitting out for a while so the bottom doesn't get soggy. Geeks like pizza. This is some tile work for the fitness building, and it's distressed to look like his favorite hotel in Yosemite. Details like that, Apple has a lot of them, but they're important if you're trying to make a design statement that reflects that somebody put time or thought into a project. This is a picture of David Muffley, the senior arborist, and he has some stories about Steve Jobs. They put these trees in the sort of these cradles when they removed them from the job site and fed them with water for a year till they were ready to replant them at the new site. This is some early pictures of the canopies. The canopies will sort of have like a built-in air exchanger in them and help keep the rain away from the building. Some notes on the building here. We've all seen the building. There's a picture of Lisa Jackson. She's in part of Apple's environmental initiatives. She's a chief officer in charge of environmental initiatives, like the solar panels and recycling. When you go on Apple Campus 3, which is still in development, you'll see a lot of the same design principles that make it readily identifiable as the Apple building for being similar to Apple Campus 2. This is Norman Foster, the lead project manager or the architect for the building design. And he's most notable for working with Buckmaster Fuller in the 60s or 70s. Buckmaster Fuller, as I said before, did these geodesic domes, and one prime example of a well-known one is the AT&T World building at Epcot Center. But that was his partner, Buckmaster Fuller. It's a picture of Johnny Eyes. I'll put a link in the description below to the article at Wired. The title is a bit off.